Hello everybody, Connor here. When it comes to collecting games for a console, there is a certain type of game that is essential for every collection, and that's the game compilation. They take multiple games and bundle them into one affordable package. Most of the time it's a collection of classic games from older consoles, re-released to new platforms. Usually so they can be reintroduced to new audiences or give longtime fans of the franchise a perfect excuse to revisit them all over again. I mean, how are you going to sell a bunch of games nobody remembers anymore? Boom, you combine them all together and sell them off as one game. It makes things a lot easier too. Why have all of these games taking up your shelf space when you could just have them all on one disc? Whether it's to celebrate an anniversary or milestone, revive a franchise from the dead, or just cash in on nostalgia, developers love bringing back their greatest hits to newer consoles as a compilation. And the one franchise you can always count on to release a game compilation is Sonic the Hedgehog. I've already talked about Sonic Mega Collection before. It re-released the 7 most popular Sonic games on the Genesis to the GameCube. It had the first 3 Sonic games, Sonic & Knuckles, Sonic Spinball, Sonic 3D Blast, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and a few other unlockable games. It absolutely nailed the emulation, but what really made this game a masterpiece was the presentation. There were so many cool extras included, like videos, concept art, and some art from the Sonic comics. I wasted so much time as a kid getting lost in the extras for this game. It's where a lot of people, including myself, got to experience the Genesis Sonic games. A few years after Sonic Mega Collection, Sega released another compilation, Sonic Gems Collection. Instead of focusing on the more popular Sonic games, Gems Collection focused on bringing attention to some of the more obscure Sonic titles. Its main draws are Sonic R, Sonic the Fighters, and Sonic CD. Sonic R sucks, the controls feel like you're driving on butter, and the track design is a confusing mess. Sonic the Fighters is just way too short to get into. It's obvious Sega threw this one together just so they could re-release Sonic CD. 3 must-have hits, including Sonic CD. Now, Sonic CD is pretty much available on everything, but before Gems Collection you had 2 options, the original Sega CD release, or the 1996 PC port. So seeing it get a new release was nice. Sonic the Fighters is an arcade fighting game that was released in 1996. It's fun to play through, but because it was an arcade game, it's pretty short and lacks substance. Sonic R, on the other hand, is a racing game that was released on the Sega Saturn. The idea sounds cool, but the gameplay definitely did not age well. I've had fever dreams that look better than this. I just wish they did more with this compilation. It would have been cool to see some other obscure games be included, like Knuckles Chaotix or even Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, another arcade game that was only released in Japan. They included some Game Gear games too as bonus games. 6 of them to be exact. You got Game Gear classics like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Spinball, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Drift 2, Tails Sky Patrol, and Tails Adventure. These are a welcome addition since I'm sure for myself and many others this was our first exposure to Sonic on the Game Gear. What? Do I look like someone that would own a Sega Game Gear? There's also a few unlockable games, Vector Man 1 and 2 for the Sega Genesis, and Japan even got Bonanza Brothers and Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3. Sonic Gems Collection clearly takes a lot of inspiration from Sonic Mega Collection, but is a lot more lacking in its collection of games, and even its extras are dull in comparison. Sonic Mega Collection felt like a museum of Sonic's glory days, while Gems Collection felt like more of a garage sale with a few cool finds. It's a decent compilation, but there's so much missed potential. Aside from re-releasing the classic Sonic games, Sega has also had their fair share of compilations that re-release their broader Genesis library, one of the most popular being Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. It was released in 2009 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and it wasn't just another classic Sonic compilation. It had over 40 classic Sega Genesis titles like Streets of Rage, Echo the Dolphin, Golden Axe, Phantasy Star, Columns, Comic Zone, and even obscure picks like Alien Storm and Gain Ground. And before you ask, yes, it also included all of the classic Sonic games, Sonic 1, 2, and 3, Sonic and Knuckles, plus Sonic Spinball and 3D Blast. It didn't include Pac-Man 2 The New Adventures though. Thank God. Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection also kills it with the presentation. The emulation is great, the menus are visually pleasing, and there are even unlockable interviews and a handful of arcade versions of games as bonus content. It's a solid collection and a great way to experience what the Genesis had to offer and how diverse the library was. The only thing missing from this collection is some customization options. The games look fine graphics-wise, but they all have these borders around them that just look ugly. If I'm playing a game that's in 4x3, I'd prefer to just have no border around it. There's also this weird smoothing filter. Why? Another thing I thought was weird was that Sonic and Knuckles were included in the compilation, but the lock-on games like Blue Sphere, Knuckles and Sonic 2, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles were absent entirely. It definitely would have been nice to have them included. But Sega wasn't the only one bringing their classic games back to new consoles. Over on the Super Nintendo, Nintendo had already set the gold standard for retro game compilations with Super Mario All-Stars. It was released in 1993 and was more than just a bundle of NES games. It was a complete overhaul of the original Super Mario Bros., the Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2 and 3, all rebuilt from the ground up in 16-bit. It was even the first time Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels was playable in America. This was the definitive way to play the first 4 Mario games for some people. Each game has save files too, which makes playing through the games a lot easier compared to the NES versions. Personally, I still enjoy the originals over the remakes. Don't get me wrong, the remakes definitely look better graphically, but when I was playing them, I noticed some of the physics feel a bit off compared to the NES, but once you play them a solid amount, you get used to it. What really sold the deal was that later down the line, Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario World were packed in with SNES consoles on one cartridge, which allowed you to have access to all of the mainline Mario games on one cartridge. For Mario's 25th anniversary, Nintendo ported Super Mario All-Stars to the Wii, with absolutely nothing changed. It's definitely a cool game to re-release to celebrate Mario's history, but it does feel like a bit of wasted potential for them to just release the SNES version with no changes. No added content, no updated features, not even the All-Stars Plus World version, just the NES game on a Wii disc. Some versions came with a neat booklet and a soundtrack CD, which was a nice bonus, but as far as the game itself, it's just Super Mario All-Stars again. But Mario isn't the only Nintendo franchise to get a compilation of older games onto newer hardware. Zelda Collector's Edition was released in 2003 for the GameCube. In Japan, it was released as a reward for Club Nintendo, and for the United States, there was a million different ways you could get the game. It was packed in with GameCube consoles, or it could be obtained through a Nintendo Power subscription, or by registering your console and other specific games. Nintendo definitely made getting your hands on this collection a little bit of a hassle. I always thought the box art was weird for this game. The GameCube logo is in a little box in the corner, and there's big text saying promotional disc. Starting the game up, you're met with a menu with all the playable games. You got The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. It's just the NES and N64 Zelda games. It's a little weird they didn't include anything from the SNES though. The games play alright, the emulation is pretty spot on, and they fixed some translation issues from the original games. Majora's Mask in this collection is a bit rough compared to the N64 version though. The frame rate is lower and it just doesn't play as good, which is disappointing. Aside from the games, there are a few extras included. There's a Zelda Retrospective video that covers the franchise's history up until Wind Waker, a Wind Waker special movie, and a 20-minute playable demo of Wind Waker. For something that was just supposed to be a bonus disc, Zelda Collector's Edition delivered an insane amount of value. It definitely wasn't perfect, but it was still an amazing way to revisit some of the series' most iconic entries, all from one console. Aside from Nintendo, Namco has also been no stranger to releasing compilations on its classic arcade titles. It feels like every console has gotten a Namco Museum at some point. The GameCube had two, the Wii had Namco Museum Remix, and of course, the Switch keeps the trend going. Namco Museum for the Switch was released in 2017 on the Nintendo eShop. It included the original Pac-Man, Galaga, Dig Dug, the Tower of Druaga, Sky Kid, Rolling Thunder, Galaga 88, Splatterhouse, Rolling Thunder 2, Tank Force, and the one that stood out to me the most, Pac-Man Vs. Pac-Man Vs. was originally released on the GameCube in 2003. It's a multiplayer game where one player controls Pac-Man while the other players are the ghosts. On the GameCube, it uses the Game Boy Advance link cables and allows the player to control Pac-Man on the Game Boy Advance. For the Switch version of the game, you need to have another Nintendo Switch system to control Pac-Man on. Luckily, they offer a free download on the eShop for people that don't own the full game, just so you don't have to buy 2 copies. A year later, Namco Museum got a physical re-release as Namco Museum Arcade Pack, which comes with Pac-Man Championship Edition 2+. These are all classic games, and they play extremely well here. I haven't noticed any issues with emulation, but really, how hard is it to mess these games up? Compared to the other Namco Museums, this one definitely lacks the extras and bonus content, but it makes up for it with all of the settings and options. You can adjust the screen, zoom in, and even rotate the screen 90 degrees for some of the arcade games that have more vertical screens. It really makes use of the Switch's portability, which makes it easy to enjoy these games on a car ride or just anywhere. Later down the line, in 2022, Namco released Pac-Man Museum Plus for the Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. It was a spiritual successor to Pac-Man Museum on the Xbox Live Arcade and PSN. It features 14 different Pac-Man games. You've got the arcade classics like the original Pac-Man, Super Pac-Man, Pac-Land, Pac-and-Pal, and Pac-Mania, as well as some of Pac-Man's console releases like Pac-Attack, Pac-in-Time, Pac-Man Arrangement, both the arcade and PSP versions, Pac-Man Championship Edition, Pac-and-Roll, Pac-Motos, Pac-Man Battle Royale, and even Pac-Man 256. This is an extremely solid lineup of games, and the presentation is really unique. You have an arcade that you can decorate and customize however you like. Each game is represented as its own arcade cabinet, and you could rearrange them, change the wallpaper, add decorations, and even unlock new items by completing missions in the games. You get coins that can be used to play games just like an arcade, but they can also be used to buy items to decorate the arcade. It adds a bit of charm and personality that makes the whole experience feel a lot more engaging than just scrolling through a menu. It's like you're building your own little Pac-Man museum, hence the name. The classic arcade games feel great, but what really stood out to me was some of the other games. You got Pac-Man 256, which was a mobile game made by the people that made Crossy Road. It's like if you took Pac-Man and made it an endless runner. It's an extremely cool concept that I probably would have never played if it wasn't for this compilation. Pac-Man Battle Royale was another cool one. It's like a multiplayer version of Pac-Man where you battle against each other. It's a really cool spin on the classic arcade game. It's nice when developers take these compilations in a unique direction. Yeah, most of the time these are classic games that most people have played a million times, but the presentation is what really makes the compilation. And that's exactly how I feel about Atari 50. It was released in 2022 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Atari, and it does just that. A lot of game compilations just feel like a collection of older games, but Atari was able to present it in a way that felt more like an interactive museum. Everything is laid out as an interactive timeline. It splits into 5 categories: arcade origins, birth of the console, highs and lows, the dawn of PCs, and the 1990s and beyond. Each era is filled with vintage commercials, developer interviews, rare photos, concept art, and behind the scenes stories. There are over 100 games included spanning each of Atari's consoles: the 2600, the 5200, the 7800, the Lynx, Jaguar, and even some of their computer games are all included. There's stuff here that most people have never even heard of, and somehow they presented it in a way that made it all feel relevant to Atari's history. There's even 6 brand new games: Haunted Houses, Neo Breakout, Quadra Tank, Sword Quest, Airworld, Vector Sector, and Yar's Revenge Reimagined. The emulation quality is excellent too. I know some of Atari's consoles like the Jaguar are hard to emulate, but I didn't notice any issues with this collection. Another compilation that was created to celebrate an anniversary was Rare Replay for the Xbox One. Rare Replay was released to celebrate Rare's 30th anniversary. It brought back 30 of Rare's classic titles in one package, spanning decades of the studio's history from the early days of the ZX Spectrum all the way to the Xbox 360 era. It features classics like Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Battletoads, Jet Force Gemini, Cameo, Not Donkey Kong Country, and Viva Pinata. Yeah, the big elephant in the room for this compilation is the lack of Rare's Nintendo titles. I mean, it makes sense. Rare worked closely with Nintendo for years, but once Microsoft bought them in 2002, all of those games stayed with Nintendo. So, unfortunately, you won't find Donkey Kong Country, Diddy Kong Racing, or GoldenEye 007 here. But even without those, Rare Replay still delivers a ton of variety and value. Its presentation is also interesting. It has the stage show vibe, complete with curtains, spotlight transitions, and vintage music. It's unique and really sets it apart from other compilations. One thing I thought was a bit weird was that some of the Xbox 360 games like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts are included but aren't built into the compilation directly. You have to download them as separate games. It's a minor inconvenience, but it does break the immersion a bit. Still, Rare Replay is one of the best examples of a game compilation done right. It's definitely one of my favorite games for the Xbox One. Overall, game compilations make for a great addition to any collection. There's just so many different compilations to choose from. Whether it's an exhibit through a developer's history like Atari 50, a collection of forgotten titles like Sonic Gems Collection, or a celebration like Rare Replay, compilations are more than just a way to save money. They let new players experience the classics and give longtime fans an excuse to replay them all over again. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go play every GameCube game on this one disc. It's not a bad deal, it only costed me my entire GameCube collection. You know what? On second thought, I think I want my GameCube collection back.